The moment Sofia Martinez walked through those marble doors wearing her thrift store blouse, she had no idea she was about to face the most humiliating night of her life. What happened next would change everything and prove that sometimes the universe has perfect timing. This is a story about respect, assumptions, and how one woman's quiet dignity would bring down an empire built on arrogance. Sofia had been cleaning office buildings for 12 years, working nights so she could be home when her daughter Emma got back from school. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills and gave her the flexibility she needed as a single mother. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Her hands were rough from chemicals and her back ached most mornings, but she took pride in her work and treated every building like it was her own home. The call came on a Tuesday morning while she was making Emma's lunch. Her supervisor, Mr. Chen, sounded apologetic but urgent. "Sofia, I know this is last minute, but we need you to cover the Grand Meridian Hotel downtown tonight. Their regular crew called in sick with food poisoning. It's a big contract for us and they specifically requested our most reliable person." Sofia hesitated. The Grand Meridian was the most exclusive hotel in the city, where celebrities stayed and business deals worth millions were made over dinner. She'd driven past it countless times but never imagined setting foot inside. "What if I mess something up?" she asked. "You won't," Mr. Chen assured her. "Just do what you always do. Be professional, be thorough, and stay out of the guests' way. They want the lobby and executive floors cleaned between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. It pays triple overtime." Sofia calculated quickly in her head. Triple overtime would mean she could finally fix Emma's bike and maybe even buy her those art supplies she'd been wanting. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." That evening, Sofia stood in front of her small bathroom mirror, smoothing down her work uniform. It was nothing special, just a simple navy blue polo shirt and matching pants that she'd bought at a discount store. The fabric was starting to fade from countless washings, and there was a small mend near the pocket where she'd caught it on a filing cabinet weeks ago. She'd paired it with her most comfortable sneakers, practical white shoes that had seen better days but still had good grip for mopping floors. Her reflection showed a woman of 35 who looked older than her years. Late nights and early mornings had left shadows under her dark eyes and worry lines creased her forehead. But Sofia had learned long ago not to dwell on appearances. She pulled her long black hair back into a neat ponytail and grabbed her small purse, a worn leather bag her mother had given her years ago. Emma was already asleep, her homework completed and laid out on the kitchen table for Sofia to check in the morning. Sofia kissed her daughter's forehead gently and locked the apartment door behind her. The bus ride downtown took 45 minutes, giving Sofia time to mentally prepare for the night ahead. She'd researched the Grand Meridian online during her lunch break, marveling at the photos of crystal chandeliers, marble columns, and rooms that cost more per night than she made in a month. The hotel had been family-owned for 3 generations and was known for its impeccable service and exclusive clientele. As the bus pulled up to her stop, Sofia felt a familiar flutter of nervousness. She'd worked in plenty of upscale buildings, but this felt different. This was a world she'd only seen in movies, where people wore designer clothes and spoke in hushed, important tones about things she couldn't imagine. The Grand Meridian rose before her like a monument to luxury. Its facade was all gleaming stone and gold accents, with uniformed doormen standing at attention beneath a canopy that sparkled with tiny lights. Sofia walked around to the service entrance as instructed, where a security guard checked her identification and handed her a temporary access card. The service elevator took her to the main lobby, and when the doors opened, Sofia's breath caught. The space was even more magnificent than the photos had suggested. Soaring ceilings were supported by marble columns that gleamed like moonlight. A chandelier the size of a small car hung overhead, casting rainbows across polished floors that reflected every detail like mirrors. Fresh flowers arranged in vases taller than Emma filled the air with the scent of roses and lilies. Sofia stepped out carefully, pulling her cleaning cart behind her. Even at 11 p.m., the hotel hummed with quiet activity. Well-dressed guests crossed the lobby speaking in multiple languages, their footsteps muffled by thick Persian rugs. Hotel staff glided silently between them, anticipating needs before they were voiced. She began her work methodically, starting with the farthest corner and working her way toward the front desk. Sofia had always believed in being invisible during her job. She kept her head down, moved efficiently, and spoke only when spoken to. It was a philosophy that had served her well in office buildings filled with busy executives who barely noticed her presence. But tonight felt different. Tonight she could sense eyes following her movements. At first she thought it was normal curiosity. The hotel's regular cleaning crew probably looked different from her, more polished perhaps, with newer uniforms and equipment. Sofia tried to ignore the feeling and focus on her work. She was polishing the marble base of a decorative fountain when she first heard the voice. "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" Sofia looked up to see a woman approaching her with quick, sharp steps. The woman was stunning in the way that money could make someone stunning. Her blonde hair was styled in perfect waves that caught the light, and her makeup was flawless despite the late hour. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Sofia's monthly rent, and her jewelry sparkled with what looked like real diamonds. "I'm with the cleaning service," Sofia said politely, showing her identification badge. "We're covering for the regular crew tonight." The woman's blue eyes narrowed as they took in Sofia's appearance from head to toe. Her gaze lingered on the faded uniform, the worn sneakers, and the small mend in Sofia's shirt. "I'm Victoria Sterling, the hotel manager. We have very specific standards here about appearance and presentation." Sofia felt her cheeks warm. "I understand, ma'am. I'll make sure not to disturb any guests." "It's not about disturbing guests," Victoria said, her voice carrying across the lobby despite its measured tone. "It's about maintaining the image our clients expect when they stay here. This is a 5-star establishment, not a corner motel." Several guests had turned to watch the interaction, their conversations pausing as they observed the exchange between the elegantly dressed manager and the cleaning woman in her faded uniform. Sofia felt their stares like physical weight and wished she could disappear into the marble floor. "I'm just here to do my job, ma'am," Sofia said quietly. "I'll be finished by morning." Victoria's smile was cold and calculated. "I'm sure you will. But in the future perhaps your company could send someone more appropriate for our clientele. Image matters here, and frankly you look like you wandered in from the street." The words hit Sofia like slaps. She'd been insulted before by difficult building tenants and demanding supervisors, but never so publicly, never with such deliberate cruelty. The handful of guests within earshot exchanged glances, some looking uncomfortable while others seemed entertained by the spectacle. "I apologize if my appearance doesn't meet your standards," Sofia managed, her voice steady despite the humiliation burning in her chest. "I'm here to work, not to be seen." "Oh, but you are being seen," Victoria replied, gesturing toward the lobby full of guests. "Everyone can see you. And what they see reflects on this hotel's reputation. We cater to a very exclusive clientele who expect a certain level of sophistication in their environment." Victoria's voice had grown louder with each word, ensuring that her criticism carried to every corner of the lobby. Sofia noticed hotel staff members pausing in their duties to watch, their faces carefully neutral but their attention focused on the unfolding drama. Sofia wanted nothing more than to leave, to walk out with whatever dignity she had left intact. But she thought of Emma sleeping at home, of the bike that needed repairs and the art supplies her daughter wanted. She thought of Mr. Chen trusting her with this important contract. She couldn't abandon her responsibilities, no matter how badly Victoria Sterling wanted to humiliate her. "I understand your concerns," Sofia said, her voice barely above a whisper but somehow carrying in the sudden quiet of the lobby. "I'll finish my work and be out of your guest's sight as much as possible." Victoria's laugh was musical and sharp, designed to cut rather than charm. "How generous of you. I suppose we should be grateful that you're at least clean. Though I have to say that shirt has seen better days, hasn't it? And those shoes. My goodness, I haven't seen sneakers like that since high school." The gathered audience was growing larger now. What had started as curious glances had become open staring as more guests drifted over to witness Victoria Sterling's public dismantling of the cleaning woman. Some looked disturbed by the display, but others seemed fascinated by the social dynamics playing out before them. Sofia felt tears threatening behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough tears over cruel words and difficult circumstances. She wouldn't give Victoria Sterling the satisfaction of seeing her break. "Ma'am, I need to get back to my work," Sofia said, turning toward her cart. "Of course you do," Victoria called after her, her voice following Sofia across the lobby. "Just remember what I said about maintaining standards. We can't have our guests thinking we're running some kind of charity operation here." The laughter that followed Victoria's words was soft but unmistakable, coming from the small crowd that had gathered to watch the confrontation. Sofia felt it like pins in her back as she moved her cart to the elevator, desperate to escape to a higher floor where fewer people would witness her shame. As the elevator doors closed, Sofia caught a final glimpse of Victoria Sterling holding court in the lobby, her blonde hair gleaming under the chandeliers as she no doubt regaled her audience with additional commentary about maintaining proper appearances and knowing one's place. Sofia leaned against the elevator wall and finally allowed herself a moment of weakness. The tears came quietly, born of exhaustion and humiliation and the bone-deep weariness of always having to prove she deserved basic human respect. But by the time the elevator reached the executive floor, she had composed herself again. She had work to do, bills to pay, and a daughter who believed her mother could handle anything the world threw at her. Victoria Sterling's cruelty would not change those facts, no matter how much it hurt. Sofia pushed her cart out onto the plush carpeting of the executive floor and began to clean, unaware that this night of humiliation would soon become something else entirely, something that would change not just her life, but the entire future of the Grand Meridian Hotel and everyone in it. Sofia had been working on the executive floor for nearly 2 hours when she heard the elevator doors open behind her. She glanced up from polishing the mahogany conference table to see a man stepping out, his presence immediately commanding attention even in the empty hallway. He was tall and distinguished, probably in his early 50s, with silver threading through his dark hair, and wearing an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that spoke of wealth without ostentation. What struck Sofia most was his expression. Unlike the dismissive glances she'd grown accustomed to from hotel guests, this man looked genuinely concerned. He surveyed the hallway, taking in the perfectly clean surfaces and Sofia's meticulous work, before his eyes settled on her face. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't quite place. "Are you all right? You look upset." Sofia quickly lowered her gaze, focusing on her cleaning cloth. "I'm fine, sir. Just finishing up the conference room. I'll be out of your way in a moment." The man didn't move toward any of the executive suites as she'd expected. Instead, he remained in the hallway, studying her with an intensity that made Sofia uncomfortable. She was used to being invisible, to blending into the background while wealthy people conducted their important business. "My name is Alexander Reyes," he said finally. "I couldn't help but notice there seemed to be some kind of commotion in the lobby earlier, something involving the hotel management and cleaning staff." Sofia's hand stilled on the conference table. She wondered how much he'd seen, how many people had witnessed her humiliation. The thought made her stomach churn with fresh embarrassment. "It was nothing, sir. Just a misunderstanding about procedure." Alexander moved closer, and Sofia noticed his shoes were handmade Italian leather, probably worth more than she made in 6 months. But his approach wasn't intimidating. There was something gentle about his manner, almost protective. "I've been staying in hotels for 30 years, he said quietly. "I've never seen a misunderstanding that required public humiliation."
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
What exactly did Victoria Sterling say to you? The fact that he knew Victoria's name surprised Sofia. Most guests wouldn't bother learning the names of hotel staff, let alone remember them. She glanced up at him briefly, trying to gauge his intentions. "She was just explaining the hotel's standards," Sofia said carefully. "I understand this is an exclusive establishment." Alexander's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Standards," he repeated, and something in his tone made Sofia look at him more closely. "Tell me, what exactly did she say about standards?" Sofia hesitated. She'd learned long ago that complaining about treatment from supervisors or managers rarely led to anything good. Usually, it just made things worse. But something about Alexander Reyes encouraged honesty. She said I didn't look appropriate for the clientele, that my appearance reflected poorly on the hotel's reputation. She was concerned that guests might think they were running a charity operation. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes fixed on Sofia's face. When he spoke again, his voice had an edge that hadn't been there before. "She said that in front of other guests." Sofia nodded, not trusting her voice. The memory of those laughing faces of Victoria's deliberate cruelty still burned. "How long have you been doing this work?" Alexander asked. 12 years, Sofia replied. "I've never had complaints about my work quality." "I'm sure you haven't." Alexander looked around the immaculate conference room, taking in every perfectly clean surface. "This is exceptional work, better than I've seen in hotels charging twice what this place does." Something in his tone made Sofia pause. Most guests complimented hotel staff in passing, throwaway remarks designed more for their own sense of politeness than genuine appreciation. But Alexander spoke with the authority of someone who knew what he was talking about. "Are you in the hotel business, sir?" she asked. "You could say that." Alexander smiled, but there was something calculating behind his eyes. "Tell me, Sofia, do you enjoy working here?" "I've only been here one night, sir. This isn't my regular assignment. But if it were, would you want to work somewhere that treats people the way Victoria Sterling treated you tonight?" Sofia considered the question carefully. "Honestly, no, sir. I believe everyone deserves basic respect, regardless of their job or how they're dressed." Alexander nodded approvingly. "I couldn't agree more. In fact, I have very strong feelings about how employees should be treated in any business establishment." He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Sofia tried not to eavesdrop, but his voice carried in the quiet hallway. "Marcus, it's Alexander. I need you to prepare the acquisition documents for the Grand Meridian Hotel. Yes, tonight. I don't care what it costs. And Marcus, I want you to do a complete background check on someone named Victoria Sterling. She's the manager here." Sofia's cleaning cloth slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers. "Acquisition documents." She stared at Alexander with growing amazement, pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. Alexander ended his call and noticed her expression. "You seem surprised." "Sir, are you saying you're going to buy this hotel?" "I'm saying I already have the means to buy this hotel, and after what I witnessed tonight, I have compelling reasons to do so." Alexander's smile was sharp now, predatory. "You see, Sofia, I own 17 hotels across 3 countries. I've built my reputation on treating staff with dignity and guests with exceptional service. What happened to you tonight goes against everything I believe a hospitality business should represent." Sofia sank into one of the conference room chairs, overwhelmed by the implications of what she was hearing. "You own hotels. I own Reyes International Hospitality. Perhaps you've heard of it." Sofia had indeed heard of it. Everyone in the service industry had heard of Reyes International. They were known for their employee benefits, their ethical business practices, and their chain of luxury hotels that competed directly with places like the Grand Meridian. The phone in Alexander's hand buzzed with an incoming call. He answered immediately. "Marcus, what did you find?" His expression grew darker as he listened. "I see, in the ownership structure." He nodded grimly. "As I suspected. Thank you." Alexander ended the call, and looked at Sofia with renewed intensity. "It seems your Victoria Sterling has quite an interesting history. 3 discrimination lawsuits in the past 5 years, all settled quietly out of court. A pattern of targeting employees she considers beneath her social status. The hotel's owners have been covering for her, because she brings in wealthy clients who appreciate her exclusive approach." Sofia felt a chill run down her spine. She'd experienced discrimination before, but never from someone with such a calculated pattern of cruelty. "But here's what's truly interesting," Alexander continued. "The Grand Meridian is in financial trouble. They've been hemorrhaging money for 2 years, relying on investors who are getting nervous about their returns. The family that owns it is desperate to sell, but they want to maintain the appearance of success until they can find a buyer." "How do you know all this?" Sofia whispered. "Because I've been watching this hotel for months, waiting for the right opportunity to acquire it. The location is perfect, the building is solid, and with proper management, it could be incredibly profitable. I just needed the right motivation to make my move." Alexander stood and began pacing the conference room, his mind clearly working through complex business calculations. "What happened to you tonight wasn't just cruel, Sofia, it was strategically stupid. Victoria Sterling humiliated a hard-working woman in front of paying guests, making them uncomfortable and reflecting poorly on the entire establishment. Any competent manager would know that kind of behavior drives away the customers who truly matter." Sofia watched him pace, still struggling to process the dramatic turn her night had taken. A few hours ago, she'd been an invisible cleaning woman being publicly mocked. Now she was apparently at the center of a hotel acquisition. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to buy this hotel," Alexander said simply. "Tonight, and then I'm going to make some changes to the management structure." Alexander's phone rang again, and this conversation was different. Sofia could hear the authority in his voice, as he spoke to what sounded like lawyers and financial advisors. Numbers were discussed, contracts referenced, and deadlines established. Within 30 minutes, Alexander had set in motion the purchase of a multi-million-dollar hotel. When he finished his calls, Alexander turned back to Sofia with a smile that was both kind and determined. The Sterling family that owns this hotel has been looking for a buyer for 8 months. They're about to get an offer they can't refuse, with closing scheduled for tomorrow morning. By noon, the Grand Meridian will be part of Reyes International. Sofia shook her head in amazement. But why? Why go to all this trouble over what happened to me? Because Sofia, how a business treats its most vulnerable employees, says everything about its character. Victoria Sterling created a hostile environment that damages not just the people she targets, but the entire reputation of this establishment. Guests don't want to stay somewhere that makes them uncomfortable with displays of cruelty. He paused, looking out the conference room windows at the city lights below. But there's another reason. My mother was a housekeeper when I was growing up. She cleaned office buildings at night to support our family after my father died. I remember her coming home in tears because some executive had made her feel small for doing honest work. I swore then that I would never tolerate that kind of treatment if I ever had the power to stop it. Sofia felt tears welling up in her eyes, but these were different from the tears of humiliation she'd shed earlier. These were tears of gratitude and amazement at finding unexpected kindness in such an unlikely place. Mr. Reyes, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. Just finish your work here tonight. Tomorrow things are going to be very different at the Grand Meridian. Alexander headed toward the elevator, then paused and turned back. Oh, and Sofia, when you see Victoria Sterling in the morning, you might want to let her know that the new owner will be conducting staff evaluations immediately. Some positions may be experiencing changes. The elevator doors closed behind him, leaving Sofia alone with her thoughts and the incredible realization that her worst night at work was about to become something extraordinary. Sofia finished cleaning the executive floor in a daze, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. By the time she made her way back to the lobby, it was nearly 4 a.m. The grand space was mostly empty now, with only a few guests crossing through and the night staff maintaining their quiet vigilance. Victoria Sterling was nowhere to be seen, probably in her office completing paperwork or perhaps finally gone home after her performance earlier. Sofia was grateful for her absence. She needed time to process everything Alexander had told her before, facing the woman who had humiliated her. Sofia completed her cleaning duties with meticulous care, taking pride in leaving every surface spotless. As she prepared to return her equipment to the service area, she noticed a commotion near the front desk. Several men in expensive suits had arrived and were speaking in urgent hushed tones with the night manager. She tried not to stare, but couldn't help noticing the documents being spread across the marble counter, the serious expressions on every face, and the way the hotel's assistant manager kept glancing nervously toward Victoria's office. By 6 a.m., Sofia had finished her work and was preparing to leave when she saw Victoria Sterling emerge from the elevator, looking as perfectly composed as she had hours earlier. Victoria's blonde hair was still flawlessly styled, her makeup refreshed, and her cream suit replaced with an elegant navy dress that probably cost more than Sofia's monthly grocery budget. Victoria strode across the lobby with her usual confidence, but Sofia noticed something different in her demeanor. There was a tension around her eyes, a stiffness in her shoulders that suggested all was not well in Victoria Sterling's perfectly controlled world. The group of suited men immediately surrounded Victoria as she approached the front desk. Sofia couldn't hear their conversation from across the lobby, but she could see Victoria's expression change from confidence to confusion to what looked like growing alarm. Documents were presented. Victoria's face went pale as she read them. Her perfectly manicured hands began to shake slightly as she flipped through page after page of what appeared to be legal paperwork. Sofia knew she should leave, that her work was finished and her bus would be arriving soon. But something kept her rooted in place, watching the drama unfold across the marble expanse of the lobby. Victoria's voice began to rise, though her words were still too distant for Sofia to understand. The night manager looked increasingly uncomfortable, glancing around the lobby as if hoping for rescue. The suited men remained calm and professional, but there was an implacable quality to their presence that suggested they were not going to be deterred by Victoria's protests. One of the men, a distinguished gentleman with silver hair, handed Victoria a business card and spoke a few words that made her face go completely white. She stared at the card as if it contained news of her own death, then looked up sharply, scanning the lobby until her eyes found Sofia. For a moment, the two women stared at each other across the vast space. Victoria's expression was a mixture of dawning realization and growing panic. Sofia saw the exact moment when Victoria understood that her world was about to change dramatically. Victoria excused herself from the group and walked quickly toward Sofia, her high heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. As she approached, Sofia could see that Victoria's perfect composure was finally cracking. "You," Victoria said, her voice barely controlled. "What did you say to him?" Sofia looked at her calmly. "I'm sorry, ma'am." "Say to whom?" "Don't play games with me." "Alexander Reyes." "What did you tell him about our conversation?" Sofia considered her response carefully. "I told him the truth about what happened. That you explained the hotel's standards regarding appropriate appearance." Victoria's laugh was harsh and brittle. "Standards? Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you understand who Alexander Reyes is?" "I know he's in the hotel business," Sofia said simply. "He's buying this hotel." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "Right now this morning, he's purchasing the Grand Meridian, because of what happened between us last night." Sofia remained silent, watching Victoria's carefully constructed world crumble around her. 20 years, Victoria continued, her voice rising. 20 years I've built my reputation in this industry. 20 years of cultivating the right clients, maintaining the right image, creating the exclusive atmosphere that made this hotel profitable. You created an atmosphere where you felt free to humiliate people for your entertainment, Sofia said quietly. That's not the same thing. Victoria stared at her, and for the first time since they'd met, Sofia saw something real in the other woman's eyes. Not the calculated cruelty or the cold superiority, but genuine fear. "I built this place," Victoria whispered. "This hotel was nothing before I made it exclusive. I created the clientele, the reputation, the standards that made wealthy people want to stay here. By making other people feel small so you could feel important," Sofia replied. "That's not building something. That's tearing people down." "You don't understand," Victoria said desperately. "In this business, image is everything. Exclusivity matters. The clients who spend real money want to feel they're somewhere special, somewhere not everyone can afford to be." Sofia looked around the magnificent lobby, taking in the marble columns and crystal chandeliers, the fresh flowers and Persian rugs that spoke of luxury and refinement. "This place is beautiful," she said. "It speaks for itself. You didn't need to make me feel worthless to make it seem valuable." Victoria's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment she looked like a different person entirely. Not the polished, cruel manager who had publicly mocked a working woman, but someone who was genuinely afraid of losing everything she'd built. "What's going to happen now?" Victoria asked, and there was something almost childlike in her voice. "I don't know," Sofia said honestly. "That's not up to me." The group of suited men was approaching now, their business with the hotel staff apparently concluded. The silver-haired gentleman who had spoken with Victoria earlier walked directly to where the two women stood. "Miss Sterling," he said politely but firmly, "Mr. Reyes would like to speak with you in the conference room. There are several operational matters to discuss regarding the transition." Victoria straightened her shoulders and seemed to recover some of her composure. "Of course, I assume he'll want a complete briefing on our current guest services and staff management procedures." "Actually," the man said with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes, "I believe Mr. Reyes is more interested in discussing your management philosophy and its alignment with Reyes International's values." Victoria glanced once more at Sofia, and in that look was a mixture of anger, fear and something that might have been regret. Then she followed the suited men toward the elevators, her heels clicking against the marble with less confidence than before. Sofia watched them disappear into the elevator, then gathered her cleaning supplies and headed for the service exit. Her work here was finished, and she had to get home to wake Emma for school. As she waited for her bus, Sofia reflected on the extraordinary night she'd just experienced. 12 hours ago she'd been an anonymous cleaning woman worried about paying her bills. Now she was apparently at the center of a multi-million-dollar hotel acquisition, orchestrated by one of the most powerful men in the hospitality industry. The bus ride home gave her time to think about what had happened, and what it might mean for her future. Alexander Reyes had been kind to her, had stood up for her in a way no one ever had before, but she was realistic enough to know that billionaires didn't typically maintain personal relationships with cleaning staff, no matter how dramatic the circumstances of their meeting. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had changed in some fundamental way, not because of money or status, but because someone had seen her worth when she was at her lowest point, and had chosen to act on that recognition. Sofia arrived home just as Emma was getting ready for school. Her daughter chattered excitedly about an art project, while Sofia made breakfast, and for a few minutes, the extraordinary events at the Grand Meridian felt like a dream. It wasn't until later that morning, when Sofia saw the news report on her phone, that she realized how real it all had been. Reyes International acquires Grand Meridian Hotel in surprise overnight deal, the headline read. The article went on to describe Alexander Reyes as a hotel magnate, known for his employee-friendly policies and his aggressive expansion of ethically managed properties. The article mentioned that the Grand Meridian's management structure would be undergoing immediate review, with several key positions expected to change hands within the week. Sofia smiled as she read the news, thinking about Victoria Sterling and wondering how the woman was handled. Then she put her phone away and got ready for another day of work. Some stories, she reflected, have endings that no one could predict. And sometimes the universe has a sense of justice that works in the most unexpected ways. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.